Sunday Conversation, Brian Neubert and Tom Dienhart join me as we will talk about the news of the week and what we expect here in the near term. And I want to thank our sponsor, and that, of course, is the Purdue Union Club Hotel. And the Union Club Hotel and the 811 restaurant, the Boiler Up Bar. Good fall weather right now, and the patio is a good place to be. In addition to the restaurant and the renovated rooms here at the Purdue Memorial Union. Going well here so far, and with some folks visiting campus to visit students or whatever, have been using that new brand new redone facility. So, guys, conversation, a lot to talk about. Obviously, the news of the week came Thursday afternoon around 4:30 Eastern Time when Rondale Moore decided to opt back in, and we hit that on a special Thursday night conversation a couple of days ago. But you look at that, and it opens up a world of possibilities for Purdue. And Brian, I'll start with you, just in terms of now that you've had a little time to process it. This is a huge deal for Purdue's program.
Yeah, I mean, from the simple perspective of Purdue got its star back. Purdue got a good portion of its national profile back. Purdue got its most viral player, its most captivating player back, and that's obviously important. But beyond that, from a competitive perspective, you obviously got better. Your whole offense got better. This isn't just about adding a significant piece to your offense, one of the best offensive players in college football. It's about this just made David Bell better. This just made the young tight ends better. This just made the running game better. This just made the quarterbacks better. Your whole offense just got better. And I think that, Purdue got as favorable a draw from a schedule perspective as you probably could have realistically hoped for. And I think adding Rondale Moore back to that mix raises your ceiling even more in terms of what you're capable of this season.
Tom, also, obviously, these games will be played with fans, without fans, or friends and family only, so to speak. It just raises your television. I mean, fans are, as we talked about in our Thursday night conversation. If you're a fan of college football, you want to watch a Rondale Moore play, you may tune into Purdue football just to see number 4 run around.
Yeah, that's the only way we're gonna get to see him. For the fans who can't go into stadiums this year, like you guys said, just an electric talent and must-see TV, right? And to steal the old NBC phrase, that's number 4. Ryan talked about the impact offensively. David Bell, Milton Wright, Ahmad Anderson Jr., Jackson Anthrop, on and on it goes. The litany of really good receivers at Purdue. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch Jeff Brom and company push the buttons, diagram plays for all that talent. But I want to make sure people understand, too, that Purdue really needs more to impact in the return game, too. He talked about that a little bit, when he announced his return. Jeff Brahms talked about that in the run-up to training camp, the need to get more playmaking ability on special teams. We all know it's urgent. Moore has that skill set. Purdue hired Marty Biaggi to be the new special teams coordinator. He knows it. Bottom line, fellas, they got to get number 4 the ball on punt returns and kickoff returns, because as you guys know, as longtime football fans, you can steal a win with a couple big special teams plays.
And, next week, obviously, will be the start of practice. We expect Purdue to be in pads on Wednesday, the 30th. And I'll start back with you, Tom. A couple things that you're going to watch. Quarterback, that's stating the obvious. Is it going to be a big storyline? Just who's going to get that job, but also how efficient that person will be in getting the ball to David Bell and Rondale Moore and administrating, running that offense.
Yeah, key spot, obviously. Remember, Elijah Sindelar could have come back this year for a 6-year of eligibility. He obviously opted not to do that. So for the first time since, 2016, guys, the season opening starting quarterback won't be named Elijah Sindelar for Purdue University. Probably a 3-man race. Jack Plummer, of course, the redshirt sophomore. Redshirt junior Aiden O'Connell. We got to look at him late last year. And maybe the X factor, guys, is the UCLA grad transfer Austin Burton. How quickly can he get up to speed? How quickly can he develop chemistry with his new teammates and learn the playbook? We shall see. But still, those seem to be the 3 top contenders. I still think Plummer's probably the presumptive number 1 right now. We saw him make 6 starts last year. A lot to like with Jack, of course. Smart kid, hard worker. Big guy, 6'5", 220, but he can move a little bit. Just needs a little bit better pocket presence, a little bit better accuracy. And, again, he's got to get the ball to these receivers. But that's going to be, obviously, a key spot to watch as training camp really gains steam here moving forward next week, guys.
Yeah, you look at this, Brian, and timing and everything that goes into a delay, all the delays, all the noise that's gone around this season. When you look at guys like Plummer and O'Connell, both guys that have some experience, and Austin Burton has a little bit of experience in his time at UCLA, is it as simple as, as we'd always seem to say about college football or football in general? You're kind of as good as your quarterback. I mean, How do you view that?
Yeah, well, when you have the weapons you have at Purdue, it's especially important because you need to leverage your strengths the best you can leverage your strengths, and having Rondale Moore and David Bell is Purdue's strengths.
Yeah.
So those guys' value is directly proportional to the performance level of the player who's responsible for getting them the ball and maximizing their value. It's absolutely positively critical. And, as Tom said, Jack Plummer and Aiden O'Connell have a little bit of experience, not a lot. Austin Burton has some experience, but he has experience in a Chip Kelly offense, not a Jeff Brom offense. So there's going to be a learning curve there, and obviously him coming in July or whenever it was he actually got to Purdue. Yeah, I'm sure he's had time to study the playbook, but he's not really had a whole lot of time to practice, nor has anybody else on this team because spring was a wash, and obviously training camp the first time around was a wash. Purdue needs stability. Purdue needs a reliable player back there who's going to make the throws that are there to be made, who's going to make good decisions more than anything, who's going to not turn the ball over. That's a lot to ask, but what'll be interesting to see is, the last time there wasn't a whole lot of separation on the depth chart for Purdue. He played both Sindelar and David Blau to say we want to have both of them ready, and that worked out because Purdue ended up needing both of them. If there's not a whole lot of separation here between Plummer and O'Connell, or Plummer, O'Connell, and Burton, or Plummer and Burton, or O'Connell and Burton, however this all shakes out, I do kind of wonder if he won't give a couple of guys some different reps. I think you want continuity with your weapons and your quarterback, but he might find value in that for all we know. And if Austin Burton is one of those guys who gives you a distinctly different look, you can do different things with him, you can keep people off balance, there might be some value in that too, because one thing Purdue's got to do, for all the talk about the quarterback and the defense, they've got to get a running game this year too. They've got to find a way to scheme a running game, to do some different things, to invigorate that portion of the game. And if that means Austin Burton has a more mobile option back there to do some different things, hey, maybe that happens.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And one thing in the COVID world, we're not going to be, in all likelihood, though we don't know this yet for certain, but in all likelihood, we will not be standing on the sidelines watching practice. So it's going to be hard, or a little bit of a challenge, to know exactly what we're going to see until October 24th rolls around and Purdue laces it up against Iowa. Some of the other storylines that we see defensively, obviously Purdue did get 8 spring practices in. Bob Diaco and that new defense, Tom, is going to be a storyline this year. It's going to be a key part of whether Purdue really gets better. What's your expectations there, and how do you view that as you go into a shortened season and a season that it has been up and down in terms of being able to have some level of continuity?
Yeah, real quick, two last quick points offensively, fellas. The line is going to be huge this year. Don't forget, Neil Callaway was hired as the senior analyst, long-time offensive line coach. We work with Dale Williams to try to get that line together and to get more physical and to establish that ground game Brian talked about. And one quick fast fact, Purdue has not had the same starting quarterback in every game during the Jeff Brom era. You have to go back to 2016 when David Blau started every game for Purdue. So it'll be interesting to see if Purdue can go from, I guess it's a shorter season, game 1 to 9 with the same starting quarterback. Now defensively, like you said, Alan, Bob Diaco comes in from Louisiana Tech. He's coordinated defenses at places like Nebraska and Notre Dame, was a head coach at UConn, played linebacker at Iowa. He's an East Coast guy, brings a lot of knowledge to the table. Installing a 3-4 base defense, like you said, we got peaks of it during spring football. Won't get a full array or real realization of what that unit looks like until, like you said, Alan, October 24th. We'll see. The question there for me is the linebacking core. How's it going to look? That's the one spot on defense I think that, in my eyes, is the most perilous and has the most to prove. Of course, Derek Barnes is back at linebacker. You see Samisi Fakasieki there. Jalen Alexander, of course, the big junior college transfer, DeMarcus Mitchell. And Jalen Graham is going to play some of that dog spot, I think, too. So I'm watching the linebacking core guys. I think the secondary can end up being pretty good as long as DJ Johnson, the Iowa transfer, gets immediate eligibility. And up front, guys, all eyes are on Lorenzo Neal, right? He has to be a linchpin in the middle of that line at nose tackle. Didn't play last year, 6'3", 325 pounds, prototypical nose guard. He's got to tie up blockers and get a push. If he does, as you guys know, whatever sport you're in, if you're good up the middle, you have a chance to be good. Purdue's got to be good up the middle, beginning with Lorenzo Neal at the middle of that line.
Brian, anything else, from your perspective, you're looking at that defense and the question mark. This is obviously an area that Jeff Brom made a change, moving away from Nick Holt. A ton of emphasis on this. We talked about Purdue's only as good as his quarterback, but winning games, it might be as good as its defense can do a good enough job to slow people down.
Yeah, I think Purdue's got a chance to be pretty good up front. This could be one of their best defensive lines in quite some time, with obviously a bona fide star in George Karlaftis, some really good interior linemen in Lorenzo Neal and Anthony Watts. What you want to make sure you're doing, I think they can be really good in the back half, too. They got some grown men coming in here, Javonte Howard, Tyler Coyle, and DJ Johnson, provided he's eligible. I think you could see a transformation in the secondary. Corey Trice did some good things last year.
Yeah.
That's a good-looking group of guys, and I think if they play that way, I think Purdue can be almost transformational for Purdue from a defensive perspective. What you want to make sure you're doing is, as you go, and the coaching staff doesn't need me to tell them this, as you go to a new system, you want to make sure you're playing to everybody's strengths. And I thought Derek Barnes did some good things, last year in his first year as a defensive end, moving him to middle linebacker. He moved out of linebacker earlier in his career for a reason. And you just hope for his sake and for Purdue's sake that you're putting him in a position where he can still be a pretty good player and build on the positive things he did last year. George Karlaftis in a 3-4, you want to make sure you're playing to his strengths as well. I know Purdue wants to be flexible. I know Purdue wants to do a lot of different things. I'm sure Purdue hopes it can scheme its way to some big plays, some turnovers, just some unpredictability. Cut down on the big plays, obviously, as well. That's, I think, a big part of the reason that Jeff Brom wanted to go in a different direction here defensively. But I think Purdue has pretty good pieces, especially up front and in the back half. We'll see how the linebackers hold up. DeMarcus Mitchell has to be good. He has to pan out, in my opinion. But I do think Purdue has some good pieces. It's just a matter of how those pieces fit into the picture Purdue wants to materialize, how well those guys take to this new system, and how consistent Purdue is in doing what it's supposed to do from an assignments perspective.
Going to be an interesting storyline that we'll watch in what will be a very different season in so many ways. Okay, a couple of news, interesting things of the week. This past week came up. The Pac-12 now will be playing 7 games starting November the 7th, and will put it in a position, as I understand it, to qualify for the college football playoff. Tom, as how do you view that? And is it now everybody's in, so to speak? How does this all come together?
Yeah, no real benchmark has been established, nor do I think one will, for inclusion into the college football playoff discussion. So, we have all five Power 5 conferences back in the fold, so to speak. About a month ago, probably never could have envisioned that, right?
Yeah.
Here we are. Lots happened, and again, the Pac-12 is the last to come on board, and that's good. It's good. They're going to play 7 games, and it's good to have that conference back, part of the equation for a potential college football playoff berth. So that'll be fun to watch. Of course, the Bulls, 2 guys. They'll vote in a few weeks, but right now the proposal is to have no win requirements for bowl eligibility this year. So you could technically be a Big Ten team that goes 0-9 and could still earn a spot to a bowl game. So again, what's the Big Ten have? I think 10 guaranteed bowl spots they already have agreements with. So I think we'll see 10 Big Ten teams in bowl games, right?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing there is that the ability to be able to figure out, with that, if you don't have any win-loss requirements, Gosh, at least Brian, from my perspective, I have a hard time picturing bowl games just in this scenario. I mean, you're going to go to the Big Ten will go to San Francisco and play in front of no fans. I mean, again, it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there'll be as many of them.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if some of the 6-6 games will go by the wayside, and the hand-picked teams to go play in bowl games will be more TV showcases than anything based off very little. And I mean, that there's something to be said for that, because it is entirely possible that, let's say, Ohio State gets a bunch of COVID cases and loses a game early in the season. That doesn't mean Ohio State's not the best team in the country, you know, at the end of the year. What'll be interesting here is that, you know, with the Big Ten and Pac-12 now playing, it'll be interesting to see if time shows us that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are the two who got it right. Because to this point, you know, the SEC hasn't kicked off yet, but it's had a lot of issues getting ready for a season. I know Tennessee and Auburn especially were down a ton of guys. The SEC is not releasing its numbers either. I wonder why. So we don't really know what the breadth of the issue is down there. The ACC's, it's been chaos. The Big 12 has been chaos. The University of Houston, have they played a game yet? Seriously, have they played a game yet?
Yeah.
There have been 20 games already in college football canceled or postponed. And what you're seeing now is the Big Ten and the Pac-12 jumping into this on the fly with what seem to be really secure testing and mitigation protocols. You have sidestepped postponement season. You have subverted all of the chaos of the early part of the season when everybody's been kind of getting by here. And you might end up in the best position to have the best season you could possibly have. And, you know, if college football had any unity to it whatsoever through this whole process, maybe they all could have come together and said, hey, guys, or if the Big Ten had just, like, you know, taken some time in making its postponement decision and come to this October 24th thing up front, maybe this could have been a unified season, everybody starting off on October 24th. Everybody playing 8 games, everybody having the same number of games, everybody having a linear season and a logical conclusion to it, and avoided all of this early season chaos when a lot of people clearly weren't ready to do this. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 have given it some time here. They have the best chance to show that they are ready to do this come October 24th, and that gives them a better chance to have a better season probably than a lot of these teams that are trying to play right now and not doing very well with it.
Yeah, the SEC started yesterday, and obviously that's going to be an interesting thing. They can bring up an excellent point about, you know, different protocols, different places, and we're going to all see how it all lands, and will be, I'm sure, a weekly to study in this entire deal is trying to figure out what we're going to see on a week-to-week basis. All right, Tom, let's look ahead, and obviously your focus this week will be the start of practice and breaking that down, but anything else that comes to mind as your parting shot?
Yeah, just the like you said, Alan, the start of practice. Jeff said, I think last week, the day of the Big Ten announced it was coming back, that he expected his team to be in shells on September 28th, Monday. Expected them to be in full pads on September 30th. Of course, that's the first day that the Big Ten will have its daily antigen testing. So that was a requirement to be in full pads. So that's when the getting will get good as far as finding out who's a football player, who's not a football player, how guys are looking. We hope to get access to some players and coaches this week. We shall see. But yeah, finally getting to pull the curtain back again on Purdue football 2020 and see what we got. There's a lot of anticipation, guys. I know I'm really eager to see how this team comes together. Of course, Jeff Brom's 4th edition in West Lafayette.
And Brian, I'll bet you I'm not going to bet you. I'll give you a dinner at 811 restaurant if the entire Big Ten schedule gets played where everybody plays 8 games. You have to hope that's going to happen, but that's going to be a storyline. Brian, what's up for you this week, and things that you're going to be paying attention to, obviously, the start of football as well?
Yeah, I'm just going to be nitpicking Tom.
Yeah.
No, I have some basketball stuff. I have a mailbag question that'll be pretty good about my certain to be wrong predictions on Purdue's basketball starting lineup. I'll have some other basketball stories. I have a Jalen Washington story, the 4-star recruit from Gary Westside in the class of 2022. We'll have my column. We'll have some some football recruiting stuff and whatnot. So kind of the usual, nothing out of the ordinary, but hopefully worthwhile.
It'll be worthwhile. The weather in Lafayette is going to turn to fall-like conditions for the start of practice. I think it's going to be in the highs in the high 50s, low 60s, I believe, on Monday and Tuesday. So we'll be at least feeling like fall to some extent, and that's a good thing. So guys, have a great rest of the weekend. We appreciate all of you for watching and listening to this Sunday conversation. We want to thank our sponsor again, the Purdue Union Club Hotel and the 811 Restaurant and the Boiler Up Bar. We appreciate their support. And again, we'll be back next Sunday for our Sunday conversation, and look forward. There's always something good to talk about. We'll be talking about, obviously, the first week of practice, and as we get closer also to the start of basketball, too. So have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for watching and listening.